So if you've thought like I'm not smart or I'm really smart, and I have thought that has an impact on what you can do in the world, you're wrong. The cognitive psychology and neuroscientists talked about neuroplasticity, and shows that your intelligence and your capacity are not fixed. What that means is they can change over time, and so they will degrade by the laws of entropy over time. But you can spend energy and focus and attention on growing them. They're not set. So if you don't think that you have enough yet, you can work on that and get better. And even if you do think you have a lot, you can work on it and get better still. I think as a function of redemptive impact, it's your obligation to grow your ability to make that impact and not just coast on what you currently have. And so that's why at the Center for Innovation we have a core value. It's called self-regulation. And the way that we say that is sharpen the axe. It comes from a quote that I'll paraphrase here, but it's said that if you give me 5 hours to chop down a tree, I'm going to spend the first 3 sharpening the axe. Essentially, I'm going to equip myself for the impact. I have a relational moral value theory that I wanted to chat with you on. And so I wanted to explain to you a little bit about what that looks like. But first, there's 2 parables that I draw it from. This is not authoritative. It's not scriptural. It's not God ordained in any way. It's just an idea that I have. But I wanted to talk through the parable of the widow's mite. And the parable of the talents. And so the first one of those, if you don't know, the parable of the widow's mite, Christ goes in and sees a wealthy person in the temple, and he's making a big show about all the money that he's donating to the temple and all the good that that's doing. He's trying to get the attention from that. And then a widow comes in, and she's got 2 mites, they call it 2 coins, 2 small amounts of money, and she offers that. And so Christ commends her and not the other one, not the first. He says that he gave out of his wealth, out of his abundance, but she gave every single thing that she had to live on, right? And that was the more noble task. It didn't matter that it was less money, the less amount of money. It was that she gave everything that she could. Another parable that's similar here is when Christ talks about the parable of the talents. And in this story, he says there was a master who gave his three servants. He gave one talent, 1 5 talents, and 1 10 talents. And the idea there was that he was going to go away, and he was going to come back and expect a return. So essentially, I've given you these talents, and you need to be good stewards of those talents and get a return from them for me until I get back. And so the first one goes, and he takes his 1 talent, and he's a little nervous about the whole thing, and so he just sticks it in the dirt, and he says, I want to make sure I get back what I was given, but I'm not going to do any kind of work on it to make it better. And the other 2 went to work on it, and they tried to grow what they had because they were increasing what they were given. And when the master came back, he came back to them, and they went to the one with 10, and he said, hey, how did it go? And he said, well, here it is, man. I gave you, I made 10 more. You gave me 10, and I got 10 more with it, proportionate with what I was given. And the master says, well done, good and faithful servant. Come now and delight with your master. Goes to the 5, and he says, hey, how did you do? And he said, I worked hard at it, and I got 5 back. I took the 5 you gave me, and I got 5 more. And he didn't condemn him for not having 10. He said, well done, good and faithful servant. Now come and share in your master's happiness. And then what came to the one with the 1 talent. And I said, hey, how'd you do? And he said, well, I know you're a hard man, and I know you reap where you didn't sow. And I wanted to make sure that I gave you back what you gave me. And so here, and he dug up the talent, here's the 1 talent you gave me. And he calls him wicked, right? And he casts him out. And he says, now give that to the one who had 10. And it's a bit of a stretch maybe, but I think there's something about this where, this is what I want to explain. I think that there's something about it wherein it's not a factor of getting unique value, but in getting proportion to what you've been given. And I'll try to explain that here as I share this one. Excuse me. So you can sort of, in a crass way, create this as a function. And I'll bring you over to me here. So the idea would be that if you were to have in a vacuum the moral good of a thing, that's like how much it's actually worth morally speaking. That's its vacuum moral value. And that would be like working really hard to find a cure to cancer. That would be saving something, or not telling lies, right? That would be like a moral value, and has a certain moral value in relation to that, such that like using everything that you have and sacrificing to then cure cancer would be a really high moral value, whereas like telling the truth would be good, but it's not quite the same, right? Overcoming some sort of evil is like a higher moral good in sort of an absolute sense. And so what I say is that there's a capacity for goodness, capacity for that vacuum moral value, and that is what you're capable of delivering. That's how many talents you were given. And so that I put as the top value, right? So your capacity is the top figure, and then, or is the bottom figure rather. Sorry, and what you accomplish is the actual moral value. So this is like, how much did you get back? So what was your return on that? So the guy who had 1 had a 0 here. He got nothing back. The guy who had 5 had a 5 here. The guy who had 10 had a 10 here. But the idea is that what you actually do over your capacity equals the moral value of your work. So if you're like wildly capable and you only do a little bit to fulfill that has a low moral value. Right. If you're really capable and you max it out, you do everything that you could do, then you're closer to a 1-to-1, right? 1-to-1 would be like pure moral value. It would be great, right? There's 100%, it's the best you can get. This though, you would want this number to be as high and as close to this number as possible. You would want to fulfill your capacity, your potential as much as you possibly can. So people who, regardless of how much they have, deliver less than that have a low moral value in the work that they've done. But it also means that people who have less that they're given naturally, who have been given 5 talents, right? They're not expected to get 10, they're expected to get 5. So if they got 5, it would be good. That's a 1-to-1. Now if the guy who had 10 came back and got 5, that would be a 50%, right? That's right. If they have 10 and they got 5, they'd have 50% moral value on that play. So that's less. So somebody who is like really just struggling, like even to stay sober, because they were born into in a family that struggled with sobriety, that struggled in that sense, and everything around them in their world is bent around that, and they have a hard situation in their lives. They might have like a really low capacity to do like a meaningful thing in the world, but them like struggling through and sweating through and getting accountability to like not get drunk on Friday night would be like commensurate. That would be like a really strong high moral value. For somebody like me, like that doesn't apply, right? Like that's not a challenge for me. That God has not set that up in my life to be a difficult thing for me. And so not getting wasted on Friday night is not a high return for me. But if you're somebody who's like more capable than me and you can cure science, or you can cure cancer, but you choose not to because it's hard work and you don't want to go into that place, then your capacity is really high and your return might be low. It might even be higher than the guy who didn't get wasted, but if it's not commensurate with what you were able to do, it's still low moral value. So I hope that makes sense. So I wanted to help explain this with a case that somebody had this year. And there was a student who tried really hard to maximize what they could do, to grow their ability to make an impact in the world. They like deliberately set out and said, I want to put myself through these experiences to be a better person so that I can do more meaningful things in the future, more than I can do right now. And so I wanted to, it was one of Mr. Donovan's mentees, and so I wanted to have him share a little bit about what that looked like. So yeah, Donnie, if you can come in here and just lean over for a minute. There you go, speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think a student that really brought this home to me was Carter Dill. I think he's just a great example of recognizing what he wanted to grow in and how he wanted to do better and then bringing that to life. He came to me and said, hey, I want to get better at business. I want to take one of your classes. Is there a place that makes sense? We agreed that the Armory might be a place for him to invest. And then once he was in the Armory, he got even more excited about working in our screen printing business. And in a very short time, he went from a guy who was kind of involved to then the chief operations officer, and then the incoming CEO. He was named the CEO as Luke Anderson graduated, and really took that very seriously, bought in, and then has worked very closely with Logo Warehouse, a local organization right around the corner, where he's done some internships and he's gotten involved with the business to make sure that he knows all that he can know. And he's really the foremost expert on campus, myself included, on screen printing. And so I'm really impressed and really proud of him with the work that he's put in to make sure that he is absolutely the best he can be and most prepared he can be to grow in the ways that he's been called to grow to lead his business.
Yeah, thanks, man. I'm gonna come close here just to tag me.
You're
See
it.
if it changes. Thank you. All right. Yeah. So, to whom much is given, much is expected from. And I mean, if you're here and you're watching this, like you're a part of this, you've been given a lot. So you have an obligation now to go out and grow that as much as you can, to be a good steward of the gifts that God has given you. And that's not in vain. You're not stuck. your capacity is not limited based on what it is now. You will, in your choices, change that capacity. It can grow or diminish over time. And so for the rest of this year, and Lord willing, for the rest of your life, it is my hope for you that you would sharpen the axe.